What if everything you believe is your brain lying to you? Today, we're exposing 10 terrifying psychology facts that control your mind without your permission. You'll discover how your brain decides before you think, why silence can manipulate you, and how your mind escapes reality to survive. Stay till the end, because once you know these facts, you'll never trust your own mind the same way again. Fact number 1, your brain is lying to you every single day. You trust your brain more than anything else in the world. But what if the very thing you depend on is constantly deceiving you? The human brain does not show you reality as it truly is. It shows you a survival-friendly version of reality. Every second, your brain receives millions of bits of information from your senses. Yet it deletes, edits, and rewrites most of it before you ever become aware. What you see, hear, and remember is not the truth. It's a carefully filtered story. One of the scariest examples is false memory. Psychology experiments have proven that your brain can create memories of events that never happened. And once those memories are formed, they feel just as real as genuine ones. People have been convinced they were lost as a child, committed crimes they never did, or experienced moments that never existed just because their brain filled in gaps. Your confidence in a memory does not make it accurate. Your brain also lies to protect your emotions. It edits painful details, exaggerates happy moments, and sometimes rewrites entire experiences so you can move forward. This is why two people can experience the same event, but remember it completely differently. Your brain doesn't care about accuracy, it cares about emotional survival. Even your vision is not real-time truth. There is a tiny delay between what happens and what you perceive. But your brain hides this gap by predicting the future milliseconds ahead. You are always living slightly in the past, but your brain convinces you it's now. That means what you call reality is actually a prediction, not a fact. The most dangerous lie is certainty. Your brain makes you feel sure even when it is guessing. That feeling of "I know this is true" is often just your brain feeling missing information with assumptions. This is why humans misunderstand intentions, jump to conclusions, and confidently believe things that are completely wrong. The terrifying truth. You don't experience the world, you experience your brain's version of it. And once you realize that, you start questioning everything you thought was real. Fact number 2, your brain decides before you even think. You believe you are in control of your decisions, but psychology reveals something disturbing. Your brain often makes choices before you are consciously aware of them. Famous neuroscience experiments using brain scans showed that electrical activity indicating a decision appears in the brain seconds before a person reports deciding. In other words, your conscious mind finds out after the decision is already made. This means your feeling of choice may be an illusion. Your subconscious processes information at lightning speed past experiences, emotions, fears, habits, and selects an action instantly. Your conscious mind then creates a story explaining why you chose it, making you feel in control. This is why people say, "I don't know why I did that." The reason exists, but it lives deep inside the subconscious. Your brain prioritizes efficiency over awareness. Thinking consciously takes energy, so the brain automates most decisions: what to say, who to trust, what to avoid, and even who you feel attracted to. Marketing and manipulation exploit this weakness. Colors, sounds, words, and facial expressions can trigger decisions without you noticing. By the time you think about it, your brain has already leaned toward yes or no. Logic often comes later, used only to justify the decision emotionally made. Fear decisions are even faster. The brain's survival system reacts before rational thought activates. That's why you jump before you realize you're scared. Your brain chooses safety first and asks questions later. The unsettling reality is this: consciousness is not the driver, it's the narrator. You experience decisions as if you made them, but many were chosen for you by neural processes you never see. Free will still exists, but it operates inside limits you don't control. Once you understand this, every decision feels different. You'll stop asking, "What did I choose?" and start asking the more dangerous question: why did my brain choose this for me? Fact number 3, silence can manipulate the human brain, and its terrifying silence feels harmless. But psychologically, it is one of the most powerful tools ever used to control the human mind. Your brain is not designed for silence. It constantly expects stimulation, sound, feedback, reassurance. When silence appears suddenly, the brain panics and starts filling the emptiness on its own. This is where manipulation begins. In psychology, silence creates cognitive pressure. When someone stops responding, your brain automatically assumes danger, rejection, or threat. That's why silence in relationships feels more painful than arguments. Your mind starts replaying memories, imagining worst-case scenarios, and blaming itself even when nothing is actually wrong. Silence forces the brain to attack itself. Interrogation techniques use silence deliberately. When a suspect is left in a quiet room, the brain becomes desperate for relief. Thoughts grow louder. Anxiety rises. The mind starts talking, just to escape the discomfort. Silence breaks resistance faster than shouting because it removes external focus and traps the person inside their own thoughts. Social dominance also relies on silence. When one person stays quiet during a tense moment, the other often feels inferior, exposed, or judged. The silent person appears powerful, not because they said something but because the other brain is working overtime trying to interpret nothing. Silence creates mystery, and mystery creates fear. Neuroscience shows that in prolonged silence, the brain increases activity in the default mode network, the system responsible for self-reflection and This is why silence often triggers memories, regrets, and intrusive thoughts. Your brain turns inward, and not always kindly. The scariest part? Silence can make people confess emotions, secrets, and guilt that were never asked for. The brain hates uncertainty more than pain. Given no information, it invents meaning even if that meaning hurts. Silence is not empty. It is a psychological weapon that lets your own mind do the damage. And once you understand this, you'll never hear silence the same way again. Fact number 4, your brain is addicted to pain and you don't even realize it. It sounds impossible. But psychology reveals a disturbing truth. The human brain can become addicted to emotional pain. Not because pain feels good, but because pain feels familiar. Your brain craves patterns. And if pain has been repeated enough, it becomes a comfort zone. This is why people stay in toxic relationships, replay sad memories, listen to depressing music, or overthink situations that hurt them. The brain releases chemicals like dopamine and cortisol, even during emotional suffering. Over time, the brain starts associating pain with stimulation, attention, and identity. Your mind prefers predictable pain over unpredictable peace. Healing requires uncertainty, and uncertainty scares the brain. Pain, on the other hand, follows a known pattern. The brain thinks, I've survived this before. That sense of familiarity feels safer than change. Psychology calls this emotional addiction. The brain replays negative thoughts because they activate neural pathways that already exist. Creating new, healthy patterns takes effort and energy, while pain runs on autopilot. So the brain chooses the easier path of on if it hurts. Trauma strengthens this effect. When pain becomes linked to love, validation, or survival, the brain confuses suffering with meaning. That's why some people feel empty when life becomes calm. Their brain is not at peace, it's bored. Even self-sabotage comes from this addiction. The brain may unconsciously destroy good opportunities just to return to familiar emotional chaos. Not because the person wants pain, but because the brain doesn't know who it is without it. The terrifying realization is this. Sometimes, the mind holds on to pain not because it can let go, but because it doesn't know what to be without it. Freedom feels unfamiliar, and unfamiliar feels dangerous. Pain isn't always the enemy. Sometimes, it's the habit your brain refuses to quit. Fact number 5, the human mind can create people who don't exist. Your brain has the terrifying ability to create people who feel completely relevant when they don't exist at all. This isn't just imagination or mental illness. It's a natural function of how the human mind works. Your brain is a pattern-making machine, and when emotional or social needs are unmet, it fills the gap by creating presence. Psychologists have studied imaginary companions, not only in children but in adults as well. Inner voices, internal conversations, and imagined audiences are extremely common. When you rehearse arguments in your head or hear a voice commenting on your actions, that's your brain simulating another person. It feels external, but it's generated internally. Loneliness amplifies this effect. When the brain lacks social feedback, it activates neural systems meant for communication anyway. The mind would rather talk to no one than stop talking at all. In extreme cases, the brain projects personalities with emotions, opinions, and memories. These creations can feel supportive or deeply critical. Neurologically, this happens because the brain uses the same regions for imagining conversations as it does for real ones. To your brain's simulated interaction and real interaction are dangerously similar. That's why thinking about someone can trigger the same emotional response as seeing them. Stress and trauma can blur this line further. The brain may externalize thoughts to cope with overload. This doesn't mean madness, it means survival. The mind creates structure when reality feels unstable. The unsettling truth is that your sense of self is already a construction. If the brain can create you, it can create others too. That means the difference between reality and imagination is thinner than you think. You don't just experience people. Sometimes, your brain creates them to keep you functioning. Fact number 6, fear is not real, but your brain makes it deadly. Fear feels real, powerful, and uncontrollable, but fear itself does not exist in the outside world. It is a product of your brain. Nothing is born fearful. Fear is learned, programmed, and reinforced through experience. Yet once created, it can dominate your entire life. Your brain is designed to keep you alive, not happy. It constantly scans for threats, and when it detects uncertainty, it feels in danger even without evidence. The fear response begins in the amygdala, which reacts faster than logic. By the time you think, your body is already reacting. This is why fear feels physical. Your heart races, breathing changes, muscles tense. The body prepares for danger even when none exists. Fear of public speaking can trigger the same biological response as facing a predator. To the brain, humiliation equals survival threat. Psychology shows that imagination fuels fear more than reality. The brain is better at predicting worst-case scenarios than neutral ones. It overestimates danger and underestimates resilience. Fear grows in silence, darkness, and anticipation. The brain also remembers fear more strongly than pleasure. Fear memories are stored deeply and recalled easily because forgetting danger could be fatal. But this system doesn't update itself automatically. Old fears stay alive even when they're no longer relevant. The most disturbing part: avoidance strengthens fear. Each time you avoid something scary, your brain learns that fear worked. It becomes louder, not weaker. Fear isn't truth. It's a warning system stuck on high volume. And if you don't understand how it works, your brain will protect you so aggressively that it ends up imprisoning you. Fact number 7, your brain can be reprogrammed without you knowing. You like to believe your thoughts are your own. But psychology reveals something disturbing. Your brain can be slowly reprogrammed without your awareness. This doesn't require hypnosis or advanced technology. It happens through repetition, environment, and emotional exposure every single day. The human brain is built on neuroplasticity, meaning it constantly rewires itself based on what it experiences. Whatever you see, hear, and emotionally react to repeatedly becomes a mental shortcut. Over time, these shortcuts turn into beliefs, preferences, and habits you assume are natural. Words are one of the strongest tools. Repeated phrases, whether from media, authority figures, or social circles, sink into the subconscious. Even if you disagree at first, your brain becomes familiar with the idea. Familiarity creates comfort, and comfort creates acceptance. This is why propaganda works, and why repeated lies start feeling true. Music and visuals also reprogram the mind. Emotional sounds bypass logic and speak directly to the subconscious. Certain beats, tones, and images trigger emotional memory, shaping mood and behavior without permission. Your brain doesn't analyze, it absorbs. Social proof accelerates this process. When you see many people behaving a certain way, your brain assumes safety in numbers. It mirrors behavior automatically. You don't decide to copy, you just do. The terrifying part is that the brain rarely alerts you when change is happening. By the time you notice, the new belief feels like it was always yours. You defend it, argue for it, and identify with it. Reprogramming doesn't feel like control, it feels like normal life. And that's what makes it dangerous. Fact number 8, loneliness physically changes the human brain. Loneliness is not just an emotion, it is a biological state that reshapes the human brain. Psychology and neuroscience show that prolonged loneliness alters how your brain processes information, threats, and even reality itself. When you are lonely, your brain shifts into survival mode. It becomes hyper-aware of social threats. Neutral expressions feel hostile. Silence feels rejection. The brain prepares for emotional pain even before it happens. Brain scans reveal changes in areas responsible for empathy, reward, and decision-making. Lonely brains release less dopamine, making pleasure harder to feel. At the same time, stress hormones increase, keeping the mind in a constant state of alertness. This creates a dangerous loop. Loneliness makes social interaction feel threatening, and avoiding interaction deepens loneliness. The brain begins to expect rejection, so it interprets everything through that lens. Memory is also affected. Lonely people remember negative interactions more clearly than positive ones. The brain prioritizes painful social information as a warning system. But this bias distorts reality. The most disturbing change is identity. Over time, loneliness becomes part of how the brain defines the self. Being alone stops feeling temporary, it feels permanent. Loneliness doesn't just hurt feelings, it rewires perception. And once the brain adapts to isolation, connection can feel unfamiliar, even unsafe. Fact number 9, your brain can't handle uncertainty, so it invents answers. The human brain has a deep psychological weakness. It cannot tolerate uncertainty. Not knowing feels more dangerous than knowing something bad. When information is missing, your brain does not wait. Patiently, it creates an answer, even if that answer is completely wrong. This is why assumptions feel so real. When someone doesn't reply to a message, your brain fills the silence with meaning, rejection, anger, betrayal. None of these may be true, but the brain chooses the most emotionally charged explanation because it feels complete. Completion feels safe. Psychologists call this closure bias. The brain would rather accept a false conclusion than stay in a state of doubt. This is how rumors spread, conspiracy theories grow, and misunderstandings destroy relationships. Once the brain locks onto an explanation, it defends it aggressively. Uncertainty activates the brain's threat system. The amygdala treats unknown outcomes as potential danger. Stress hormones rise, focus narrows, and logic weakens. In this state, the brain grabs the first explanation that reduces anxiety even if it increases fear later. This also explains why people hate open-ended situations. Waiting, ambiguity, and maybe are mentally exhausting. The brain wants a resolution. That's why cliffhangers work and why unanswered questions feel unbearable. The scary truth is that confidence often comes from imagination, not facts. The brain mistakes clarity for correctness. Once you feel sure, you stop searching for truth. Your brain doesn't want accuracy. It wants certainty. And when reality refuses to provide it, the mind creates its own version and calls it truth. It requires attention, patience, and emotional effort. The human brain, however, is built to conserve energy. When reality becomes uncomfortable, boring, or painful, the mind looks for exits. This is called psychological escapism. Scrolling endlessly, daydreaming, binge-watching, fantasizing, overthinking, these are not just habits. The brain prefers stimulation over stillness. Silence forces self-awareness, and self-awareness can be uncomfortable, so the mind distracts itself with noise, images, and imagined futures. Dopamine rewards these escapes, making them addictive. Escapism feels harmless at first, but over time it trains the brain to avoid reality instead of facing it. Problems grow while attention shrinks. The mind becomes restless, constantly seeking the next distraction. Ironically, the more you escape, the harder reality feels when you return. The brain loses tolerance for boredom and discomfort. This creates a cycle where reality feels unbearable without constant stimulation. The most unsettling part, the brain starts preferring imagined versions of life over real ones. Expectations rise. Satisfaction drops. Reality can no longer compete with fantasy. The mind doesn't escape because it's weak. It escapes because it's efficient. But if left unchecked, the same system that protects you can slowly disconnect you from real life. And that's the final trick of the human brain running away while convincing you just relaxing.